Hey there, it's Brian Main, political asylum lawyer, and in this video, I'm going to tell you the steps we'll take together in your asylum case should you hire me to be your lawyer. Now, when you're seeking asylum through the asylum office, there are two main steps: submitting your asylum application and the supporting materials along with it, and then doing your asylum interview. But I'm going to explain to you all the things that you and I will do together to ensure that you present the strongest case possible, so we put you in the best position possible to win asylum, so that you can stay safe and stay here. Now, I know that people considering applying for asylum and considering hiring a lawyer to help them, well, they want to know what they're getting into. They want to know what the actual steps in the process are and what their lawyer is going to do for them. And I get that. Deciding to apply for asylum and hiring a lawyer are big decisions with major financial and other implications. And in fact, getting this right is literally a matter of life and death for some people, because it could be really bad for them if they had to return to their home country. So I appreciate that you are taking the time to consider this carefully, and I want you to know exactly what will happen if we end up working together. Now, this roadmap to asylum, this plan that I've put together, is based on my experience working for the US government, including as an asylum officer. And by the way, an asylum officer, that's the person who will interview you and make the decision in your case. I spent 11 years working for the government's two main agencies for asylum and refugee matters, which provided me with a very distinct vision for how best to put together an asylum case and to help prepare my clients for their interview. So here are the 5 steps that you can look forward to from start to finish in your asylum case. Step 1 is a kickoff meeting. When you hire me, we will already have talked and discussed your case some, but I want to get to know you better, because this is a partnership that we're forming and pursuing your asylum claim, and it works best when I really understand who you are and where you're coming from, and when you feel like you know and truly trust me. And I of course need to get more details about your situation so that we can start building your case. Also, I want you to know where we're headed in your case, so I'll tell you in detail, and even more detail than I'm giving you in this video, about how things will unfold and how exactly we're going to put together the strongest case possible for you. So to that end, the first thing that we'll do after you hire me is to get together and discuss some things in a kickoff meeting. For people in the Houston area, well, we can do this in person, but for folks who are not around here, well, we handle this by video conference. So that's the first step, an in-depth discussion where we get to know each other better, dig deeper into your circumstances, and map out in detail the next steps and our approach to positioning you for success. Now, step 2 concerns your personal statement. So you're going to write out your story. You're going to explain what has happened to you or what it is about you that makes you think people may hurt you if you had to go back to your country. Now, for strategic reasons, we're going to keep this short, just about 3 pages. And you're going to structure it in a very particular way. The way that I found in my experience as an asylum officer is ideal for stating your case. The personal statement will be part of your asylum application. It's submitted with your application. Now, the personal statement is extremely important. It's your chance to tell your story in your own words and in the way that you want to tell it. And importantly, it may be your only chance to do this, because at your asylum interview, the officer does not just let you talk and say whatever you want to say. A well-crafted personal statement sets the stage for your case and can make it such that the officer has a favorable impression of your case and of you before you even set foot in their office for your interview. So you and I will work together closely to get your personal statement just right. I'll provide a framework that you can use as you begin writing it. I provide guidelines and things for you to consider that will help you put together a powerful personal statement. All right, on to step 3, preparing your application package. The personal statement we just discussed is only one part of the asylum application that we'll be submitting for you. You, of course, have to fill out the actual asylum application form, which is called Form I-589. That's actually not too tough, but still, it's important to make sure it's flawless. So we'll work together to get it right. And there are certain other things that you'll need to get that everyone has to submit with their application, like a passport-style photo of yourself and copies of identity documents, like your birth certificate. I'll give you a list of what you need to gather along those lines. And I may ask you also to get certain additional documents if I believe they may help you in your case. For example, sometimes getting a letter from someone who witnessed something that you've been through in your country can be helpful, as can other things that support your story. I'll make this assessment and discuss with you what documents we should try to get to include with your application. Once we've got everything together, you send it to me and I arrange it in a certain way, a way that I found is ideal for presenting your case. And while you're doing all this, filling out the application and collecting supporting materials, well, I'll be writing a brief for your case. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's me explaining why, based on your situation, you're eligible for asylum. I apply applicable U.S. asylum law and policy to the facts of your case. In the brief, I lay out why you should get asylum under the law. It's a roadmap that shows the asylum officer how to get to yes in your case so that they can grant you asylum. I draw on my experience from the other side of the desk, my experience as an asylum officer, to give the decision maker what they need to give you asylum. From the formatting of my brief, to the type of language I use, to the way that I cite the law and applicable authorities, well, everything is gauged to make it as easy as possible for the asylum officer to see why you're qualified for asylum and why they should give it to you. This is a very important part of your case, and I've got to tell you, most immigration lawyers don't even do this at all in affirmative asylum cases. When I was an asylum officer, in all the cases that I saw where a lawyer was involved, only a very small percentage of them had a brief or any kind of statement from the lawyer explaining why their client should get asylum. And I was actually shocked that so few lawyers did this. In my opinion, that's a huge missed opportunity to make an impact in a case. So I encourage you, before hiring an asylum lawyer, to ask them whether they'll write a brief in support of your case. All right, so once I've done the brief and I put together all your application materials, I'll send your application off to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is the agency that handles these kinds of asylum cases. That agency is known by its acronym USCIS, by the way. Okay, we're moving on to step 4 in the process for getting asylum, and that's getting you ready for your interview. Usually a few weeks after submitting your application, you'll get a letter from USCIS called a Notice of Receipt that confirms that they've received the application and they're processing it. And then sometime thereafter, you'll get another letter that tells you that you need to go to what's called an Application Support Center, which is a USCIS facility where you'll be fingerprinted and have your photo taken. This is necessary for the background checks that they'll do as part of your case. And then sometime after that, you'll get a letter saying that your interview has been scheduled and informing you of the date and time of the interview. This letter normally comes about 2 weeks before your interview is to occur. And that's when you and I will spring back into action to prepare you for the interview. The most important part of this preparation is the mock interview that we'll do. I'll play the role of the asylum officer, and we'll go through the entire process of what you'll face on the day of your real interview. We'll do the same administrative stuff that you'll be asked to do at your interview, like reviewing your asylum application together, and then I'll ask you questions similar to what you can expect during the real thing. And afterward, I'll give you feedback, and I'll share with you the insights that I developed as an asylum officer that I think will really help you to have a great interview. Doing the mock interview will help you feel more comfortable going into the real thing because you'll feel like you've done it before. It'll feel familiar. And I've got to tell you, an asylum interview can be intimidating. It's a very different encounter than anything that most people have ever experienced. That's why the mock interview is so important. You get a feeling for what it's going to be like. You get to feel what it's like to have to respond to all kinds of questions and to not really have much control over where the interview is going. Having this experience will help you relax when it's time for your real interview. You'll be less nervous, which will help you maintain your composure. It will help you focus on the questions being asked and to give clear, thoughtful answers. So if you're in Houston, we'll do the mock interview and other interview preparation in person. But if you're not here, then we'll likely do it by video conference. All right, we're on to the last step, step 5. Your interview. I'll go with you to your asylum interview where you'll bring together everything that we've discussed and practiced in stating your case. The majority of it is you responding to the asylum officer's questions. Now, I've got several responsibilities at your interview. One is to make sure your rights are respected and that you're treated fairly. Most asylum officers are professionals and they do things right, but there are times when a lawyer needs to step in and defend their client. I'll also be ready to jump in to clear up misunderstandings between you and the officer. These happen sometimes because of language barriers, but can be due to other reasons as well, and it's critical that any such misunderstanding about a question or an answer be addressed. My most important role at your interview is assessing what things about your case are of most concern to the officer and to address them at the end of the interview. You see, at the end, the officer allows the lawyer to make a statement. And I use that time to address issues that I can tell the officer either didn't understand or maybe viewed as being an impediment to giving you asylum. And it's my experience as an asylum officer that helps me do this. Throughout the interview, I can tell, I believe, based on the questions they're asking you and other dynamics in the room, what it is that is giving the officer pause, what it is that they see as a weakness in your case. And that's what I address at the end when I make my statement. I explain why those issues that were troubling the officer really shouldn't be troubling them, and I seize the opportunity to speak directly to the issues in your case that the officer needs to have addressed so that they can give you asylum. At the end of your interview, the officer will tell you either that you need to come back in 2 weeks to pick up your decision, which is a letter telling you the outcome, or whether it will be mailed to you. And that's it. Those are the main steps in the asylum process when someone works with me. Notice I didn't really give you many time frames or indication of how long it may be between each step. Well, that's because this is constantly changing. Various factors come into play in determining how long any one aspect may take and in determining how long the overall process might take. I'll have a sense at the time someone's ready to hire me as their asylum lawyer for how things have been going recently in this regard so that I'm able to at least say, well, recently it's been taking about this amount of time for most people. But even then, every case is different. So no lawyer can say with certainty exactly what kind of timelines you'll see in your case. Thanks so much for spending this time with me. I hope this answered some of your questions about what you can expect when I represent someone as their asylum lawyer. Of course, please do let me know what questions you still have. I look forward to supporting you in your asylum journey.